Now that you know how to create charts and graphs within your sheet, I want to show you how to up your game by creating a customized dashboard. This is really cool. It's going to display your data as it comes in and changes, and you can even add interactivity for people that are viewing your data. So to get started, all I did was create an additional tab in my spreadsheet, and I don't want to make you sit and watch how I built this, but just using the skills that you learned in the earlier modules, you can create a quick little template for yourself. And to do that, essentially what I did was I removed my excess columns, removed the excess rows, applied a fill color to all the cells, and then to create this area right here, I used the cell borders, changed the line color, and created that outline. And then I created headers by selecting a range of cells and applying a fill color. All right, and you know how to add text and adjust that text. So what I want to do is I want to add charts and graphs here. You can do that in two ways. You can either insert them with it using this chart option here, or you can copy and paste from other tabs where you already have charts. So let me just show you how to do that. I'm just going to use my keyboard shortcuts, Control C. You could also use the menu of options and copy. And I'm going to use Control V to paste this. Once pasted in, you can move it and arrange it. And I'm going to do the same thing with this chart. Control C and Control V. Those are two really good keyboard shortcuts to know if you don't already know how to use those. All right, and you can see how I just added these here. Now, another really cool kind of chart that we haven't talked about is a scorecard chart. What a scorecard chart does is it displays a key performance indicator. So I want to take all of my data and I want to pick out like 2 or 3 key statistics for it that are really going to kind of sum up what's going on. And so, for example, I want a scorecard that displays the average minutes that my students are reading. Now, sure, I could type that in, or I could use a formula, which we haven't talked about yet, but a scorecard does that for me. So let's go to Insert, Chart, and it gives me a suggestion, which I'm going to override and look down here for the Scorecard Chart option. Right now it's saying my data range is B7 because that is the cell that my mouse is in. I need to adjust that. I want to pull my data from this sheet called Data. So for this one, I said I wanted average minutes read, which is in column D. So D2 through D148 includes the average minutes read, but it's not D2 through D148 in this sheet. It's in the data sheet. So I'm going to type in the name of the sheet tab with an exclamation point. And I want to aggregate it because I want it to include all of the data in that entire range, but I don't want it to be added up. I want an average. So this is the average number of minutes that students read in a session. Wouldn't that be awesome if every student did that? But that's what my data says. So I'm going to go to the Customize tab, and I want to give this a title. So I'm going to call this Average Minutes Read per Session. And you can also match this to your theme by changing the color. You can change the sizes. Let me make that a little bit bigger. And I'll make that bold. And then exit out. Now that you've inserted it, you can resize it to fit in the area that you have designated for the scorecards. Now I want to create a couple more. So I'm going to click on this, hit Control C, Control V to copy. And now for this one, by double click, I can edit it. I want to create a scorecard that displays the total number of pages that my entire class has read. So the total pages happens to be in column C. And again, let me just double check that. Uh-oh. Column C, yep, that's where the total pages read is. So I'm going to double click this, change that to column C, and I want total pages read, not average. So I'm going to change the aggregate to sum, and then I can edit the title. Total pages read, and then let me do one more. Resize that. And my last one, I'm going to do most pages read in a session. So again, pages read are in column C, and I don't want an average. I want the max value. And I'll change this. And it looks like I have to change the font. All right, so now I have my scorecards, which is pretty cool. And what's nice is all this data in this chart updates as the data changes. So for example, this was the most pages read. It was 50. Let's change that number to 52. Okay, and you'll see this is the scorecard is automatically updated. Another type of chart that you can add, this is really cool. This is a geo or a map chart. And I'm going to use that chart to display the places that the students are reading about. So that is in column E. So again, I'm going to go to Insert, Chart. And I want to look for the map chart. Here it is, GeoChart. And again, I need to update my range. It's in the data sheet or the data tab. And we said that this was in column E. Again, I want to aggregate this data because I want it to look at all the settings. And you'll see that this is showing, there's a color scheme here. And so if it's this dark red, it means that it's read about, but not a lot. So only, one student has read about Tokyo, whereas Paris has been read about quite a bit. This doesn't really match my color scheme, so I'll go to Customize, go to Geography, and I'm just going to do shades of blue here. And just kind of like up the ante each time. So if the place is read about a lot, it's going to be this dark blue. And then if the place isn't read about at all, I'll just give it a gray color and then X out the editor. Now that that chart's inserted, I can add it to this area of my dashboard and resize it to fit. This is really cool. This visually displays the places that my students are reading about. All right, and then one final thing that I would like to show you, and this is really cool. This is using something we learned about in an earlier lesson called the data slicer. What I want to accomplish with the data slicer is I want to be able to filter this dashboard based on a student. Right now, this is showing me the data for my class as a whole. So I'm going to add a slicer. And again, you're going to notice that it's pulling the data from this dashboard sheet, but my data is actually really in my data sheet. So I type data exclamation point, and using A1, my whole range, all the data is from A1 through F148. And now I can pick a column. I want to be able to filter this by student. So let me customize this. And I'll say select a student. And I can even update the text and the button color to match my theme. And then press X that out. Here's my slicer. I can make this larger. And so what's really cool is that now that I have this slicer, I can just filter by students I want to see information on. So let's take a look. Let's say we just want to see how much is Brandon reading. So I can just select his name, and this is showing me that Brandon Walsh reads an average number of minutes per session of 29 minutes. I'm going to edit this title because it doesn't all fit. Let me change that to 20. 24. Right, he has read 652 pages so far, and his longest or his most number of pages read was 52. Right, and here is his daily reading chart. So he's pretty consistent, except for this first number. And again, we talked about this being responsive. So if we adjust this to a more appropriate number, right, you'll see that this data changes. So I can see data just for my individual students. What's really nice about these dashboards is once created, you can share these with colleagues. You can publish this as a web page. You can even download this as a PDF. So this is really great for generating reports, and it's also a really nice way to use the charts and graphs features within Google Sheets. I hope you learned a lot and hope you're inspired to create your own dashboards using your sheet data.